So I would like to welcome our guest with Jason Stoddard of Schiit Audio. I always like to start off with just kind of how you got into this.
Oh boy. Well, I always wanted to do this.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do audio. In college, I decided, I was going to college. I decided to go into engineering, into electronics engineering. But back then it's like, oh, you get your engineering degree and then you go work in aerospace. Not really big on aerospace. So I started making speakers. In my parents' living room. And we're talking cutting MDF and painting and stuff. It did not endear me very much to my parents, but that's what I always wanted to do. I made speakers and I bought amps and took them apart and usually broke them most of the time. And but I always knew I wanted to do audio, so I always wanted to do music reproduction. I may not be the world's expert on music or the world's expert on essentially what's going on in live recording and stuff, but I always wanted to make something that made great sound. So that's how I got into it.
So kind of speaking of designing and making stuff,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I like about the products, no matter if it's the $99 stuff or something like the new tier,
Right.
is the simple design of the metal.
Oh, the essentially the industrial design side of it, yeah.
Kind of what made you go with that?
It's part what we can do, and part essentially keeping it simple. My aesthetic is super simple, super clean. I like to remind my wife that the first time I moved, when I moved from my first house to my second house, it took me 90 minutes to pack because I had nothing. And now it takes about 90 days probably with all of her stuff. But it's cool. But my aesthetic is simple, and we had to do something that was affordable.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies like to, get into we mill, solid hunks of aluminum and stuff like that. It's great, looks great, costs a ton of money, super wasteful. We just take things, we bend them, we put very simple lines on them, very simple holes, and and I'm not big on screens or touch screens. So it's a bent piece of metal, a knob, a couple buttons, and that's about as complicated as we get. But I also like things that are easy to use. One of the things about new cars that just kills me is all the screens.
Yeah.
It's in the old days, it's I gotta change something on the dash, and so you're you're doing this, you find on the dash, and you got it. Now it's let's see, it's not on that menu, it's on this one, it's on that one, and then boom, you're dead because you just ran into someone. It's sorry, I'm reactionary. I do carry an iPhone. I do live in the real world. I have cars with screens. But I like knobs. I like simple, interfaces.
That's kind of one of the things I like about the Escort. Simple, it just has the knob on the front,
mm-hmm.
2 switches on the front,
mm-hmm.
and power switch on the back.
Power switch on the back. That everyone gets on me about. Yeah. And it's it started there, and it'll probably end there because it's right by where the power comes in, so I don't have to run it around the chassis. Also, some of our products is if you take apart a Lear or something, there's actually transformers all along one side of the chassis. There's no place to put the power switch up front, so it has to be in the back.
Yeah. I can't remember what interview I saw this with, but it was about measurements.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of what's the balance between going with designing a product with measurements, but also making it sure it sounds good.
Yeah, and I think that's really the big question.
Yeah.
Because not to put down measurements. It's fairly easy to get good measurements these days. I mean, if you're talking minus 115 dB THD plus N to minus 125. It's fairly easy to get into that range if you use, you know, some of like the best op amps out there and use a lot of feedback. It's not a slam dunk, you know, it does take skill to get there, but then we have a lot of stuff that doesn't measure that good, and a lot of people think sounds better. And my business partner Mike, he's like, anything under minus 70 dB probably doesn't have anything to do with sound, it's probably all transients. And I'm like, I don't know, but we do pay a lot of attention to the transient response of things. We do look at what square waves look like, etc. And that's actually what kind of drove us into doing what we do with current feedback. Current feedback gives us actually a much more stable amplifier. That also measures pretty good, 105, 110, you know, it's not, they're not terrible, they're not the be all end all. And so, but the thing is, where do you stop? I mean, do I spend, you know, literally weeks or months trying to optimize something that I can't measure in Corpus Christi? We have two audio analyzers. We have, or two of the big ones. We have an AP 525 and an AP 555. The 555 is the big kahuna, it can measure everything. The 525 is a little step down. It's, you know, good enough for most things. So that's what we have in Corpus Christi. And it goes down to about minus 112. And a lot of the stuff that I do now, it's like, I measure it and it's like, hey, it's minus 112. And I bring it here, it's minus 118 or it's minus 120 or, you know, whatever. It's below what that thing can do. But honestly, a lot of products, I mean, turn the volume to midpoint and you're into high resistance on the pot. You've got thermal noise, which probably swamps, you know, those great measurements. It might be like minus 90 at that point. You know, even though it's a minus 110 device, it might be minus 90 just because of the noise. So do I spend all the time trying to get better when the pot's all the way up, which you never use? You know, you never listen to something with a pot all the way up, or at least if you do, boy, I want to know what headphones you're using, because that's pretty crazy. Or do you actually listen and, you know, make decisions? And the problem with listening is, I've told everyone this before. What's my favorite thing? My favorite thing is the thing I designed most frequently, or most recently. It's like, hey, I got a new amp. It's the best thing ever. You know, then a month later, hey, I got a new amp. It's the best thing ever. If you don't actually have a way to step back and say, but is it? Is it just new? So that's why we do a lot of what we call blind listening, where we'll have someone else set it up, where we can A/B, we can listen to whatever music we want at whatever volume we want for as long as we want, but, you know, we can switch. And at that point, that's when, you know, that's where it gets interesting, because first you realize the differences aren't as big as you think they are, and second, the measurements are actually maybe not as important as you think you are, because we've had people confuse Magni Heresy, which is a minus 118 dB type thing, with Valley 2, which is like minus 45. And you know, I threw it in the test because I figured, oh, everyone can hear this. It's a lot closer than you think it is. So it's a balance. You know, we try not to design something that's so egregiously bad that, you know, unless it's tube-based, and when we're saying it, this is really not about the measurements. We try to design something that's not egregiously bad, but we also listen to it. And this is where everyone will fight with me and say, because half people say, well, you got to have the best measurements. Half people say, well, what you should be doing 100% subjective. And it's like, no, I think we actually do need to do both. Yeah. And there's a balance somewhere. But you asked what the balance is?
Well,
if I knew what the balance was, boy, it'd make life a lot easier.
Well, just like, I know there are some people that really focus on measurements and will only base things on measurements.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that's one way to choose a product. Yeah. There's also people that will only, you know, base their decisions on subjective, you know, how it sounds. Now, the problem with that is, you know, then you get these magazines that shall remain nameless that are like, oh, we listened to this, DAC, and it's the best thing ever, and it's $120,000. And you're like, wait a minute. So, are you actually hearing the DAC, or are you hearing the money?
Yeah.
Because they didn't listen to it blind. The measurements might be good, or they might be actually really bad, or they might be great, but, it doesn't seem to have a correlation. So, I don't know. I tell everyone, like it says on our website, basically, don't buy any of our products. Choose a transducer you like, meaning a headphone, a speaker, whatever. Choose something that you like, because those make a huge difference. Someone who can't tell the difference between, say, an Odyssey and a Grado headphone, you can argue about Valey versus, the Magna Heresy, right? But a Grado and an Odyssey, you should be able to go, okay, this is clearly a Grado, this is clearly an Odyssey. Pick one you like. And then if you're unsatisfied, we have a whole bunch of amps, starting at $99, and it says right on, Magna, it says, this is all you'll ever need. And, we're not joking. This is all you need. If you want other stuff, hey, it's bigger, it's fancier, it's aluminum, it gets hotter, it has tubes sticking out, but that's all you need. Then you can consider that. And it's funny, because we've actually seen people going, they buy a Magni, and then they'll step up to, like, an Asgard or Jotunheim, and then suddenly, they're buying Tears and Yggdrasils and stuff like that. Our stuff can get fairly pricey, too. But I wish there was a way to actually say this is audio quality. And some people do it by measurements. This is audio quality based on measurements. This is audio quality based on, and some people do it on subjective. This is audio quality based on what a reviewer said. I'd love if there was a machine that said, this is audio quality, and here's the thing. But even that's a problem, because if you had a hypothetical audio quality machine that said this is audio quality, according to who? Because I like Odyssey. A lot of other people like Grados.
Yeah.
Is it Grado audio quality, or is it Odyssey audio quality? So in other words, is it my audio quality, or is it your audio quality? So it does get back to that subjective thing eventually. It might be a kind of a, you might be chasing yourself around, but eventually you got to have something you like.
Yeah.
And it could be, it could be your phone.
Yeah.
It could be the audio output jack of your laptop.
Yeah.
It could be, $200,000 worth of audio gear. Hopefully somewhere in between. Just to be really frank with you, I think, both get a little nutty.
So, I've kind of noticed that there might some of the products that have been released, there will be like multiple versions.
Yeah.
So kind of why?
Mainly because A, we can, and B, the multiple version products are usually done at a level where we think you're talking shades of gray. Like Yggdrasil, when we did the flavors of Yggdrasil, we did more is less, less is more, and OG, which is original Yggdrasil. And a lot of people kind of lost their mind at that, because they've been hearing forever. It's like, this is the new one, this is the upgrade, it is far better than the old one, and thou shalt do the upgrade, or not, but the implication is here's your one true path. And when we were working on Yggdrasil upgrades, we actually did 10 different boards, 10 different upgrade boards, 10 different approaches. And Mike and I and Dave kind of all keyed on like 3 of them. And you were all kind of like, well, I like this one. And Dave would be like, I like that one. And Mike was like, I like the third one. And I'm like, well, I like this one. And so we kind of went back and forth, and we couldn't come to a consensus. And I'm like, introduce all of them, and say, hey, it's flavors. Maybe if you're playing at this level, the crazy $2,000, DAC price level, maybe there isn't a true path. Maybe, again, you have different speakers than I do. This DAC might work differently with that.
Yeah.
And that blew up a lot of people's heads. And I'm like, okay, so let's use some logic. So either every other manufacturer since the beginning of time has been perfect in that they have devised the singular upgrade that's best for everyone that you should buy. Or maybe it's just shades of gray, and sometimes they get lucky and sometimes they don't. We're just kind of saying, hey, maybe it's shades of gray. Why don't we see what people like? And, it's funny. A lot of people ended up liking the one Mike liked, which was Less is More, which was actually the least expensive one, which was really, really funny, actually. But that's why we try it. If you went to a sane, large company and said, hey, let's introduce a bunch of different, variations on a product, you'll probably either get thrown out of the room if it's electronics, because, there's a lot of pain involved in getting a bunch of variations done. Or if you're a food company, you might get promoted because it seems like they love doing 8,000 different variations on, everything. Cheetos, Cheez-Its, everything on the planet has about 500,000 flavors now. I'm like, maybe try something new? So, I don't know. But that's why we do it. It's more an experiment. Plus, in the case of our modular products like Jotunheim and Asgard, they have a couple different DACs you can use, and one's kind of like the measurement DAC, and one's the multi-bit DAC, which doesn't measure as well, but we think sounds better. Which, again, a lot of people are like, "You're crazy." It's like, great, hey, you saved $100.
Yeah.
There you go.
I've also noticed, on the back of the Asgard,
Mm-hmm.
there's a little spot where you can put in a DAC if you wanted to.
Yep.
So it does give people options.
Yeah, we brought that out we started doing the modularity like the Jotunheim, because at the time everyone's like, oh, let's do an amp DAC, let's get an amp DAC. And I'm like, DAC technology changes so fast. I don't know if that's such a bright idea, because you might get tired of the DAC before the amp. But I get it. One box on the desktop is is compelling. I am now using an Asgard with the ESS 9028 DAC card in it on my desktop, so I can't say anything about this because I have the measurement DAC and I have a one box. But the thing is, if it changes, we can put a different DAC in it. And so you can use that amp, which, let's face it, amp technology hasn't changed a lot in the last 40 years anyway. So Asgard will continue going for a long time. The DAC side, we'll see. I mean, Mike has some new ideas right now. He's been showing me, and I'm like, this is great. Let me know when they're done, because we've talked about things too early before, and it always gets us in trouble.
So I actually am curious, kind of what wine is that?
Oh, this is it's a wine found in the closet of the shitter. It is Hoi Polloi, Touch of Evil Reserve. This is actually a local winery, and by local I mean they're literally down the street. And yeah, I was wondering if we had any wine, and this is what we found. I like it. It's quite decent. A lot of people ask me what I'm drinking, because it's like this, it'll usually be wine. In Texas, I'll do beer. And I like to support the local wineries or breweries.
That's one thing I do like about the live streams.
Mm-hmm.
Is there will always be both beer and wine.
Yep.
So it kind of makes things a bit more relaxed.
Yeah, and honestly, after a long day, it's nice. It's nice to actually sit down. The last few months have been very, very stressful because everyone's heard supply chain. Everyone's heard all the reasons. And the thing is, it's like when when you have to redesign probably about 60% of your product line because you can't get certain things, and because the manufacturer is even doing things like, oh, the stuff you ordered in 18 weeks? No, that's 36. Oh, no, wait, sorry. We're still not going to deliver them then. It's 54. No, it's 70. No, and now it's 90. 90 weeks, so 2 years on some things. Those are DSPs like we use in the multi-bit decks. Yeah, it's kind of stressful. And yeah, Mike and Dave and I have been like, okay, so after the 10 hours a day we spend redesigning our stuff for something we might be able to get, because there's still no guarantees there. Now we actually maybe need to do some new products, and we're finally, as of the last kind of month, we're finally getting to the point where we can design some new products. So I'm working on some new things, they're working on a bunch of new things, everyone's all excited, and I'm just waiting for okay, what's the next hammer to drop? What can't we get? It'll be something amazingly stupid, but it'll probably be in everything. That if manufacturing was easy, everyone would do it. If electronics were easy, everyone would do it. If design was easy, everyone. If podcasting and video was easy, everyone would do it. So it's like, I'm glad you apparently can get the equipment you need because it's not a guarantee sometimes.
Well, with all this, I've taught myself, so I didn't. It's all like being self-taught with this whole YouTube thing. Mm-hmm. So I just learned whatever I could learn.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of how everything's changing. It's really funny because when I started in audio, my first job in audio that wasn't a failing speaker company that I created was Sumo, which made high-end audio power amps and things like that, and preamps, things like that. And I was the young weirdo who's like, he's going to use the computer layout program. I'm like, what? How else are you going to do a board? And they're like, oh, we tape it up. I'm like, you're joking, right? You're actually joking. No one does that. And they're like, no, that's how you do it. And I'm like, that would never happen. And so I was the weirdo. I had to self-teach myself how to do that, and that was strange. But we're now going into this new world where it's actually kind of funny. Mike and Dave grew up doing boards on Altium and doing designs and all these old tools, and I've always used kind of the new open source stuff. And now I'm seeing it flip, where open source and the younger crowd is now doing a lot more, and they're teaching themselves how to do it better and more efficiently. And so this whole thing is starting all over again. Mike's like, I don't know how this world works anymore. I said, Mike, this is how it works. Maybe hire someone to do your boards, because no one wants to deal with Altium anymore, and Altium doesn't want to deal with you. And it's really weird. I had a fight for over the last couple of days with a very large company that makes parts for us, and they're like, I said, I need this part. I need a potentiometer that does X, Y, and Z. And they're like, well, we can't do that. I'm like, that's really funny because you've done X for us. I know you have a part that will fit these things, so take 3 of them, put it in there, which is what we're asking for, and then sell it to us. That's Z. They're like, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And they're like, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna find a young Chinese company, and I'm going to go and have it done there. Because you know what they say? They say, yes, and do you want it in a week? And that's actually how a lot of things move to China. China's not necessarily evil. They're just, they're hungry. Yeah. They're competent. They want to get things done. And so if we end up with a potentiometer, which isn't even in the signal path, it's just a sensor thing, in one of our products it's made in China rather than Japan, that's why.
Yeah.
It's because the old guys say no, and the young guys say, well, how would you like it? It's really fascinating to see how that's working out. And I'm seeing a real flip in the industry right now, the way things are done. So I'm excited, but if you ask me, the future is always the brightest, tomorrow is always the greatest. But I've screwed up too.
It's with the logo for the like the Schiit logo.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with it?
We were having the metal done, and we needed a logo.
Yeah.
And he said, I need this in 10 minutes. So that's how we came up with it. Pretty much.
Yeah.
I'd been playing with logo designs because I had an agency before this. I was playing with logo designs based on this kind of, grid. And I had all these variations. And when our metal guy says, hey, I can have this done today, but I need it in 10 minutes. I'm like, that's fine, pick one and here you go. And that's pretty much how it was done. But then that actually gave birth to the font and everything. All of our products are in that same weird kind of blocky font. It's not really a font, it's all hand drawn. And so that's another design geekery, thing. It's like I do that, I do the industrial design, and I do the analog design. I probably do too much, but it's all fun. And right now I'm drawing up new products, and I'm kind of going, how far can we go with simplicity without making people go insane, because I have to press the button like 18 times to get through a cycle of lights or something like that. At some point you do want more complex ways of interacting with things, not necessarily displays, but you do actually want something more. And we're running into that now on some of the more complex products. If I ever put a screen on an Asgard or a Jotunheim, please shoot me. That's said.
It's with a project like the Freya Plus.
Yeah.
It's like a mix of the tube,
Mm-hmm.
but also more of like a modern kind of. So kind of why have like the two in one?
I've gotten taken to task on this from both ways. One is, well, clearly you're not confident in your designs. I'm like, And then on the other hand, a lot of people are like, wow, you let someone compare it directly to just relays, just a passive preamp. You must have some balls. And I'm like, it's funny how it can be both ways, but no. The reality is, I think what you'll hear a lot about from us is this concept of flavors and preferences and system matching.
Yeah.
When I did Freya, I'm like, yeah, we can do a tube preamp, which I do like. If I use a Freya Plus, it's going to be in tube mode. But while we're at it, it costs literally nothing to just say, hey, you can use the relay volume ladder, which there are companies that sell relay ladder, passive preamps for more than Freya, like a lot more than Freya. So it's like, well, why don't you just throw that in free? So I threw that in free, and I'm like, but what if you actually just need a buffer? What if you need to drive some long cables? It's like, oh, let's throw that in too. It's not that much more. So that's how it evolved into that 3-state product. It's like I've kind of long thought about like this, especially considering tubes are, they're harder to get. They're much more expensive, and the future. I don't think the future is questionable. It's just that right now if you want to do tubes, it's more painful. The price of Freya, in fact, has to probably go up to reflect tube costs. Giant pain in the butt. But I've been wondering, you know, what I should do about that, and I don't have a great answer yet. I've been playing with a few things. Honestly, okay, complete sacrilege. I use a Freya S, which is solid state, and I use it in solid state mode. Sorry, you know. So yeah, even I am kind of like, I think I'd rather do the solid state one. What I'd love to do is like something that switches really seamlessly from solid state to tube, and uses the same topology and gives you those options. The problem is that the reality of that's very difficult. You know, tubes run on very, very high voltages. Solid state typically doesn't. They usually run at different, essentially different currents. It's to get something that, say, at a touch of a button goes from tube to solid state, and then doesn't let you choose like a bad combo. Like, let's say you don't have the tubes in it and you select that mode and you get, a few hundred volts at the output. That wouldn't be great. Things like that. It's I'd love to do that in the future, but so far that hasn't worked out. Let's just leave it at that.
So I've actually been to this building a number of times.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually do like the kind of like the rustic feel. So kind of like, what made you go with like this location?
This actually was the headquarters of our agency for a little while. Before that, it was a wine shop. So when our agency downsized in 2009, we took this pretty much as is. It's a rustic, weird-looking building, and I kind of liked it, so I just left it alone. When we decided to do what we call the shitter, our retail store, I decided, hey, let's leave it alone, and it's actually worked very well. If we were to do another one, would I go for the same aesthetic? Probably not, but right now, if we do another one, it'd probably be in Austin. And what I'd love to do is have like one in Austin, one in New York, and one in San Francisco, and maybe Seattle. It really depends. I'd have to look at where most of the units are sold. I definitely would love to have one in the San Francisco area. Definitely New York. Austin is huge. It's scary, and I might go with a more minimalist aesthetic, but not Apple. I mean, Apple has that down to a T. That's great. And also, I don't want people saying, "How come your stuff doesn't come in like 8 colors?" Because then the people who actually do our metal will kill themselves. So they'll be like, "No, we're not doing 8 anodized colors and trying to match them." No. As much as I do like that, it's like we've been struggling just to do silver and black, and silver is really bad right now. We'll see what happens. We've been maintaining it. It's just the price had to go up. Well, black is fairly easy.
Whenever you listen to music, no matter if it's for listening to for like designing a new product, or if it's just kind of like a casual listening, do you have like a preference if it's speaker or headphone?
I go back and forth. Right now it's trending towards speakers because it's hot, and I don't really, and I don't keep the house at like 72 degrees, so I tend to like listening to speakers rather than having something on my head. But I'll go back and forth. Right now I'm listening to speakers because I'm listening to various speaker amp prototypes. Don't get too excited. Who knows if any of them will come to fruition. But I'm playing with that. They both have their place. Headphones, I do like in terms of detail and in terms of isolation. If you're concentrating, if you're like really working on something, it's really great to put the headphones on and just check out, except for what you're working on. The speakers, it's more of a fun thing. And I do have both. I mean, at both my desks, here and in Corpus, I have near fields, and I have a selection of headphones. A really shitty selection of headphones here. I got to fix that. But I have better speakers here, so everything's in balance.
Like I'm kind of like it's both. Like I do listen to headphones, but I also do listen to speakers.
Speakers, I think, if you if you have either tolerant roommates, nice neighbors, etc., and you can get away with speakers, I mean, they have a more real quality. They image. It does feel more like you're there. Headphones are more intimate, but they aren't necessarily real sounding. And that's fine, because a lot of times I'm listening to headphones is I'll be either writing a chapter or working on laying out a board or something. It's like I want to work on this. Don't bug me. Speakers is like, you can interrupt me. It's fine. Or we got speakers in. We have a combined calling it a home theater is a little ridiculous. It's not really a home theater. It's just it's a room, home theater and music room, and that's a little different. That's a little more serious, but still not super serious. I mean, I was amazed. I went to a show a few years back, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's these really great planar speakers you should try. They're mid-priced planar speakers." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Cool," because I think mid-price, it's probably $2,000-$3,000. That's great. And I'm like, wait, what's mid-price? They're like, about $50,000. I'm like, hey, your idea of mid-price is a car, like quite a decent car. I mean, that's a new Ford Lightning with a few options, kind of car. No, I don't think I'll be listening to those. No.
I've listened to the speakers that are in here. It's the LRS.
Yeah, the LRSs are great.
And they definitely do. I think they're like around $1,000.
They were $650. I think they might be $799 now. But they're really good.
Yeah, they definitely are good for that price.
Yeah, they are. And the thing is, as you get up into, when you get above a few thousand, there's so many options and so many trade-offs. I mean, until you get into either crazy money and, so you can actually do real full range stuff that goes down to, 15 or 20 hertz, that's rare. That's super rare.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's kind of like, it comes back to the whole thing about measurement versus sound versus preferences. Is like there's no perfect speaker and there's no perfect one at any price.
Yeah.
But where it gets real confusing is when you have if you got $5,000 or $10,000 to spend, I'm like, oh my god, that's horrible because you have so many choices, and then you got to decide what do you want to concentrate on. If you got $1,000, it's like, get the LRSs, get a Vidar, call it a day. It's great. No, you're not going to get great bass. You want great bass? Find a sealed. Get a rhythmic 12-inch sealed servo sub, and go. Yeah, it's not the best, but it's a decent. It's a decent integration because that's like $600. That kind of thing. Because that is all in. $2,200-$2,300. Throw on a cheap preamp or not even at all, and get it down with volume control. Done. You're done. That's great. Or you can go crazy. I mean, I've had dealers actually tell me seriously, if your total system cost is under $250,000, you're not really serious. I'm like. It's a house. In Texas, that's a house. Guys, you're talking house. And I've had other guys like, well, our total home theater cost was $1.2 million. I'm like, that's not just a house in Texas. That's like a house here and actually quite a decent house even here in California. So you guys, you're all crazy. something wrong with you. I want to make my $100, products, and up to be fair, we make stuff that's $2,000-$3,000, but we really do mostly the inexpensive stuff.
I've been both in the speaker room and the headphone room, and I've mainly been in the headphone room, and I've listened to like the $99 stuff, and even stuff like the even stuff more like the Lear or like kind of the stuff that's like a few hundred.
Yeah.
And it's not the most expensive in the world, but definitely for the like it is a good sounding.
Yeah, I like Lear. That's what I have on my desk in Corpus. I really like it. With an old school. It's really funny. I got the measurement one here, and then in Corpus I got the Lear with the multi-bit card. So I got the shitty measurement one there, and they do. To me, they sound different. The Lear is more of the stereotypical softer, warmer, kind of thing, and that pairs with different headphones than what I have here. And it's funny because that's actually where I listen to Grados is in Corpus. Yeah, funny on a Lear. What a shock.
With the Asgard that I have, I primarily use it for a headphone amp, and it definitely does pair nicely with the headphones that I have. And like there definitely have been times where I've like been really into the music. I'm not sure like what the measurements are for that, but
it's kind of middle of the road-ish. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's a really simple topology. I think actually Magni 3+ mount measures it quite significantly, which is hilarious. But it's really kind of one of our first current feedback amps, and I kind of deliberately made it sound a little warmer, a little more lush than is neutral, and we had a choice to change it up and to make it more neutral, and I'm like, no, let's have something that's a little more deliberately colored. I do really like the way it sounds. I've been using it more as a preamp lately, but it does great with a lot of headphones. And the hilarious thing is, and we are guilty of this, the hilarious thing is you're like, oh, it does great with a lot of headphones. It's like most headphones don't really need a lot of power, and we're guilty of saying, yeah, look, you got 6 watts, you have 8 watts, you have it was huge power in terms of headphones. You don't really need that, though. I mean, a Magni does 2.4, which is nuts. It's completely bonkers, unless you're talking a handful of very, very hard to drive, headphones. So it's like a Magni. I don't have a problem, with Magni or Vali on almost anything. And I think the whole issue of power has been kind of overblown. It's nice. Don't get me wrong. It's nice to have kind of effortless stuff, but kind of going, well, it can't drive that. It's like, well, maybe a Fulla. I mean, Fulla is weaker than a lot of our stuff, but really. A couple watts is tons and tons for headphones.
I think the headphones that I have, they're not like the over the ear,
right?
But they're actually molded to my ears.
Oh, so they're actually they're not circumaural. They're like supraaural, where they're oh boy,
and I think they're about, I can't remember the exact specs, but I think they're like right around like 104 dB.
Yeah, it's really funny. You don't need much to drive that.
Yeah,
I did a business card once that you could build into a little amplifier, and I handed out a few of them. But yeah, I mean, it was probably like 30 milliwatts, and people were like, it's plenty loud. I'm like, 30 milliwatts is nothing, dude, but if you're excited, I'm excited. But yeah, 30 milliwatts versus our Yeah, our weakest discrete amp is 2.4 watts, so 2400 milliwatts versus 30. You know, there you go.
It, with having the location here in Valencia and also in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
how were you able to like find what products went where to be made?
Yeah, that kind of fell together really well. We had this idea of like we'll do the simpler products in Texas. You know, not a diss on Texas, just it's a nice, you know, it's actually much better to ship like tens or hundreds of thousands of things from the middle of the country, you know, and ship the less quantity stuff here. And we've actually done that. I mean, anything that uses a wall wart or anything that plugs into USB for power is now in Texas. Anything that uses a cable that plugs into the wall is made in California. And honestly, I don't know if we could break it down any better, because if we start making products with cords there, then we have to stock the cords. It gets really painful, and if we wanted to make any of that stuff here, it's like the wall warts have to come back, and that's not fun at all. I mean, you should see the warehouse. It's sometimes I think it's 80%, you know, wall warts. But yeah, that's actually worked really well. So anything up to like Lokius is made Texas, and Asgard 3 and up are made here.
Yeah.
And works great. It's actually wonderful because our production manager here, Elvis, was able to literally redo everything from this very hinky kind of craft buildy thing, you know, where everyone kind of grabbed something and went to their desk and, you know, build it from the ground up, to more of a production line. And now it's much easier to build things here, and in Texas it's always been easy because it is that craft build where you grab a board, put it in a box. Here it's much more like, you know, dress the wires, you know, there's a lot more to be done here. You know, when building a Vidar site versus, you know, a Magni, totally different.
I watched the video on it was about the tier.
Oh, the tier, yeah.
Just going from the place that does like the chassis to the board to like putting all the stuff together.
Oh yeah, and when Jana came out, she was like, do we have to visit your suppliers? And I'm like, oh yeah, we need to visit our suppliers, because first, it's an important part of the story. Second, the first thing someone's going to say is like, well, where are they getting the chassis? Yeah. Where are they getting the boards? It's like, well, we're getting them right here. It's like literally drive down the street, you know. And that's one thing, you know, we try to do, even if we end up getting a pot, you know, in China, or actually our wall warts come from Taiwan, or like an inductor, you know, out of China or something. The vast majority of it's here. The vast majority of the money we put into a product, you know, the chassis, the transformers, the boards, all that stuff, that's all actually here. So we're not doing the final, you know, just the final screw together, and that's one thing I need to maintain. The catch is, like, you know, we had that choice with Modi recently. It's like, well, it either remains a $99 product and it's made mainly in China, or it has to go up in price significantly and remain here. So we raised the price. Yeah. Doesn't seem to have hurt anything, so that's good. I don't think Magni's fine. I don't think it needs to go up, but who knows? I mean, gas is expensive. Everything's expensive. Who knows where it's going to go? I hope it goes back down. Yeah. It's like I'd be a lot happier if I don't have to raise the prices. Honestly. Yeah.
Kind of like with the to kind of piggyback off of that.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like probably like a year and a half ago, the whole AKM thing. Kind of how have you been able to adapt to like the change?
Everything's ESS now. Well, yeah, Modius The next run is Modius E.
Yeah.
I don't know if I may be giving away the huge secret that we're taking Modius over to ESS as well, but I'm sure I'm not. We're deep in back order, and there's been delays in getting the ESS implementation going, but that will be ESS.
Yeah.
Now it's hilarious. AKM's back, so they're back, and we got samples of the new AKM parts. That's great. That's wonderful. They sound pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that's very comforting for the future. Yeah. Are we switching back? No. You know why we're not switching back? Because you don't like to change things at work.
Yeah.
However, if ESS runs into an issue,
yeah.
or hey, if you're watching this and you want to raise prices, just saying, we got options now. So it's really funny because some people really prefer ESS, some people really prefer AKM, and I understand that. It's like I thought I liked AKM until we did the ESS, and now I'm actually enjoying our ESS products. I think both of them make good DACs.
Yeah.
It's just that one's an easier implementation, one's more complicated, and I actually kind of like the more complicated one because then it makes it harder to get right, and we have the code guys and everything that can do that. But yeah, so the future right now is ESS unless there's a glitch. AKM, maybe I'll put it back. I'm looking at a couple new products. I may put it back on a couple of things, but Modi and Modi S are going to be ESS.
Are there any whenever you have free time, are there any shows that you watch?
Oh boy, yes. If I have a little bit of free time, I finished up The Expanse a while back. I'm a fan of the show, but I'll be the first to warn people. It's like it's not for everyone.
Yeah. Really
slow and kind of, it's very geeky. If you like geeky sci-fi, it's wonderful. I just finished up new Stranger Things. That was disappointing. That was way disappointing. That whoever did season 4, shoot him in the head. So
I know they've released 7 episodes so far.
Yep.
And they have 2 more coming.
Yeah, I don't know if the 2 can redeem, but we'll see. I mean, they at least did explain a few things I've been wondering about, but I think the production design is fairly lazy, and unfortunately, I have friends in the industry, and my standard for production design is pretty high, and I don't know. Yeah. That's all I'm gonna say. No spoilers, no nothing. But it's weird. I will pretty much watch fairly exclusively sci-fi stuff, and I don't have a lot of time, so I don't watch a lot of things.
I'm on episode 6 of the new season of Stranger Things,
mm-hmm.
and the new season definitely it's not like 100% perfect,
mm-hmm.
but it does have both of its ups and downs.
I'm really interested to see where For All Mankind is going to go, because if they're on Mars in the 80s, that's really interesting. One of the most interesting conversations I ever had was I went to a commercialization of space. Commercialization of space conference. I think around 2006. This was, kind of pre even SpaceX, launching things into orbit, and they were. It was really fascinating to see what they were fighting with at the time. I'll leave it at that, because I don't know where this is going to go. I didn't get that SpaceX was going to end up, owning 80 or 90% of the world launches and stuff like that. But we will see. Oh no, actually, I will mention that the commercialization of space thing. I had a conversation with. Oh boy. Let's see if I can remember. Freeman Dyson. We sat down and talked, just for 20 minutes, but he said, well, we were only one vote away from Orion, right? Instead of Apollo. And I'm like, wait. Orion? You mean like the nuclear powered spaceships? He's like, yes. Like, we were one vote away from getting Orion as a program instead of Apollo. And it's like, oh yeah, and it was like Mars in 1965, Saturn in 1970. They were going to launch ships with 100 to 400 people in them. I'm like, from orbit, of course. He's like, oh no, you just do it out in the Nevada desert. I'm like, you're going to use nuclear bombs to launch ships with 100 to 400 people in them from Earth. He's like, oh yeah, they didn't know about the fallout and stuff. I'm like, oh, the world could be completely wacky. So I really want to see where For All Mankind actually goes, because that would be really interesting, to have an accelerated space program. But Elon's working on that. We'll see where that goes. Don't know.
So that's actually all the questions that I have.
Huh.
So I think that wraps up the whole thing.
The universe.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's funny, Audio is its own kind of small universe, right? But we're having so much fun doing this. And it's like Mike and I are really having the time of our lives, and we're at this point where these investment banking companies show up about every week, and they're like, "Hey, we're looking for a mid-sized, company to invest in and take to the next level." I'm like, "That's nice. Not interested. Don't need your money. Having the time of our lives." And I said, and by the way, I mean, if you actually look at our demographics, our IP, et cetera, it's like, you better bring a Samsung level offer before we're even talking. And they're like, ooh, hands off. I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested. This is fun. So, contact me in 10 years when I'm, when I'm actually able to get senior discounts and stuff. Maybe, probably not. I mean, I really think I'll probably be working until the end, because I still have so many new wacky ideas to come up with in audio that I'm just going to keep doing it. I know Mike's same way.
I definitely enjoy people who kind of love what they do.
Yeah.
It just makes it more fun.
Yeah, I mean, okay, no, I won't say why would you do something you don't like. I get it, got to make money, got to do it, but it's like if you can do something that you love, and it doesn't kill it for you, then do it, because this is great. I mean, I've spent 20 years in an agency, and it was fun, but it wasn't really what I should be doing. This is clearly, what I should be.
Yeah.
I think what I should be doing. And then everyone can correct me and go, no, you should probably not make any more audio gear ever. They might be right.
Yeah. So I think that wraps up the episode.
Okay.
I definitely have had fun talking about the whole...
all the wacky stuff, yeah. No, it's been fun. It's been fun talking. I like talking about what we're doing. I like the fact that you're interested and you took the time to do it. It's also a little selfish in that when I talk about it, I get more excited about it. So I kind of remind myself, oh yeah, this is cool. I need to go work on this. It's not just like I got to redesign everything because I can't get parts, which thankfully is getting better.
Yeah.
And now that I said that, can't wait to look at the emails.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations! We can't get this now. We'll see. We've gotten around it before. We'll get around it again.